Every now and then, I come across a game that not only stands out for what it is, but also kind of confuses me to the point that I just have to know more. You like World War I? Maybe even a bit of World War II? Do you want to mix them up into a big burning pot and add a bit of rodent? Yes, you heard me. Give it some of that Men of War UI and mechanics and you end up with something special. Something like Ratten Reich. Ratten Reich is set in a dark, grim world. A steampunk-inspired world war rages on between rats, mice, lizards, and everything above, using the darkest and bloodiest moments of history to convey a story of heroism, loss, and tragedy, and also what it's like if Hitler was a rodent. Of course, as you can tell, the game is a fantasy setting, yet has so much based in reality, from the weapons, the places, and even the factions, with a mix of World War I and World War II, with a little bit of the steampunk-inspired fantasy in there. It does, however, have much more of a big focus on using the realism and horror of the Great War, conveyed almost in parallel to something like an Animal Farm, reliving history through new eyes and an angle that hasn't been done before. All the uniforms are based on real fashions of each country, and as are the factions you play from. The roaches are from the motherland, the mice of the French, even down to the lizards of Japan, and of course the Ratten Reich themselves, translated from German to Rat Realm, or Empire. It sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? But also I think it does give the developer an extra level when it comes to some sort of storytelling. The problem with recreating history in media is getting that balance between telling the truth and being accurate and respectful to the past, but also making a good game out of it. Both can be done, and they have been done in the past with something like Kingdom Come Deliverance. It took real events in society from the medieval period, respects it, and makes a good game under those guidelines, as opposed to something on the opposite like Battlefield 5, which, you know, has someone in a mech arm jumping out of a window because it looks cool, I guess. On top of this, with using animals and not real people to convey history, it gives the developers way more leeway. Using this alternate reality means creative license can be used, yet the core reasons and effects of war can still be conveyed and told, much like, once again, Animal Farm, in which the horror and the structure of communist Russia was told through the eyes of a non-human storyteller and ends up with a much more lasting impression. You may be thinking, Metal Adler Studio, they're really going out on a bit of a mental one here, are they? Why not just make a normal World War RTS? Well, this isn't actually the first time these developers have forayed into this Ratten Reich universe they've created. Back in 2020, Ratten Reich: A Dance of Kings was released, a free-to-play choose-your-own-adventure type storyteller. Set in the same universe, it's way less of a game and more of a lore builder, if you will. Almost a behind-the-story look, and the past and the people, or should I say animals, involved in this alternate war. The game had mixed responses due to, I think, most people wanting more than just a read-through story, yet I think that was always the intention. Maybe they did see those negative responses and then thought, hey, let's make something else, and went to work on this as an RTS. But I think the most likely thing is Ratten Reich, this new RTS, that is set to come out 2 years after the release of that first game, would have been in development for way longer than that. So I think the Choose Your Own Story release was an intentional introduction into their world, a lore builder to familiarize people with the story so far. That's why it's free, and why it does nothing but add more content to a game that will be coming in the future. I don't think that first Ratten Reich was ever meant to stand on its own. So let's talk about the new one, the upcoming RTS. It was released onto Kickstarter and has now even doubled its target, even with 10 days to go from the making of this video. So there's no doubt that it's something people really want to see. Okay, so we know the background. Let's have a look at the actual trailers and gameplay to find out what this game is about. Well, it's hoping to take players through a campaign across the world through different theaters and fronts. With the hitting of $50,000, the game has added 2 new campaigns. But as you can see, there are so many possibilities for the different places to explore in this campaign, with all the factions and countries that they're planning to represent. From Korea to Japan, USA to Canada, there's surely going to be a hell of a lot of single-player content here. Speaking of single-player, there's also talks of adding in multiplayer later, with modding support and porting to consoles as well. Yet those targets are yet to be hit on Kickstarter, so I think that's something that's more in the air at this point. The game looks incredibly complex though, especially from an aesthetics point of view. Graphically, it looks amazing, from the water to the fog, to even the blood splatters when troops are hit by enemy shells and shot. We also get a good look at some of the early bits of gameplay, and admittedly, what we are shown looks, well, clunky to say the least. The controls don't really look as smooth as something like Men of War, or even Company of Heroes at that, but of course that can kind of be expected. This has a much lower budget and a team that doesn't have that same experience, yet it does show, however, what the devs are going for. You can see very much the inspiration from a game like Men of War, especially the Assault Squad series, from the inventory of each unit where items can be transferred to and from, to the silhouettes of troops when it comes to giving orders and making strategies of where you want to position your men. The UI is unsurprisingly similar as well. Judging from the trailers as well, we can see lots of different types of units, from general riflemen to tanks and those deadly yet vulnerable flame troopers, taking and clearing buildings to move armies fighting through varied terrain, from cities to fields. Also, did anyone notice in that clip the airship in the background of the trailer? Is that just a cool looking piece to immerse us in the world, or are we going to be able to perform some epic aerial maneuvers? I want to backflip a blimp. That's possible, right? Speaking of vehicles, there's fully mechanized customization. Yes, how cool does this look? Being able to choose what armor and weapons you want to gear your tank up with to take to the battle, from turrets to rockets, even being able to create your own land mattresses to terrify the enemy. And hey, look, there's even a goddamn sidecar and MG combo you can get going there. What more could you want? Some other additions are mustard gas and some incredible alternate war machinery, including a goddamn Skaven doom wheel. I would love to just see the rats running through that thing to make it move like a hamster ball. But one massive part of this game that is blowing me away is how goddamn good does that first person stuff look. This is a strategy game, by the way. Call to Arms did try and have that strategy game going into first person effect, and it had some success with it, but even that didn't look this good. There is so much content promised from this game, from an intense lore and background, incredibly inspired RTS gameplay, and even now getting down and dirty in the front line to win battles first person with your own hands. So when are we going to get it? Well, it's set for a September 2022 release. Yes, we still have about 12 months before we can get our hands on it, but it is shaping up to be very, very promising. As usual, I'm not affiliated with any of these games I talk about, and if I was, I would let you know beforehand. But hey, when you see a game this insane, I couldn't not share it with you guys. That's what this channel is all about. So if you want to, stick around. Let me know what you think. Do we have a promising game on our hands here, or is there still some skepticism to be seen from the Kickstarter? Let me know in the comments below. But leave a like in the video if you enjoyed it, leave a dislike if you didn't. But until then, I will see you in the next one.